Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? It is September 1st, which means it's day 32 of RPG A Day 2024. What? Well, there was a bonus or alternate question, and that was amazing anecdote. And I wasn't sure if I was really going to answer this or not, and I had another idea. But then my girlfriend Susan asked me a great question about how did I find all these other people that I game with, around the world and whatnot. And she said, well, that might be helpful, for other people. And then she, asked a follow-up question. Well, how would, somebody like Ollie, somebody like her kid that plays role-playing games, how would they find people to play with, say, over Zoom? Would it be safe? All this kind of stuff. And so I have less to say about that because I don't have personal experience. But I can tell you about my own personal experience in finding gamers to play with and to finding the group that I finally, wow, people are having a lot of fun out there. And so are we. The people I ended up playing with. And, initially when I came back to role-playing games after a long hiatus back in 2010, 2011, something like that, I played with some people locally, some friends that I knew that gamed. They're great people, but I realized the style and the game was not for me. I was a member of a community called Dragon's Foot, which is devoted to, like, say, TSR, Dungeons and Dragons, second edition and back, the old stuff. And I also got on, like, RPG.net. I think at that point that's what I was looking at as far as people. And I was somehow, hooked up with this guy, Joe the lawyer. He's got his YouTube channel, as a matter of fact. And we ended up playing Lamentations of the Flame Princess together. And so for a while, I had this kind of semi-local group. And then life intervened. But I started back again in earnest, trying to figure out, well, who am I going to game with? And I wanted to game with people locally, but I discovered this giant world out there in the world. And I was seeing things on YouTube, and I remember, like, Francois Letarte, made a comment on one of my videos, and I ended up actually, doing a response video to Condor DM, as a matter of fact. But, Francois kind of got, when I started making videos again, we started developing this dialogue between Francois and I. I was watching a bunch of videos by Anthony, by Runeslinger, and I might have been linked to that by Francois, something like that. Like YouTube started suggesting, go watch this, go watch that. And I was also, got into, I think, a Facebook group called the RPG Brigade. I remember, like, Tim, Samwise7, all these people that I was watching their videos, commenting on them. We became friends. We started talking, and they said, well, let's join this group and talk to these people. And I remember at one point I ended up asking Anthony a question. I think I might have friend requested him on Facebook or just sent him a Facebook messenger. We started a dialogue. We started talking. And at some point, we started playing All for One Regime Diabolique. And I got to meet Seb. I think actually Francois had me play in the Brigade Con in the RPGS setting. And we played Apodic Fudge, that setting and that, that country and that system. And so I started to play games online with people via Google Hangouts at the time. I started to meet people. Most of the people I played with, it was okay. It was fun, but it didn't click entirely. And so it was a lot of trial and error, a lot of false starts. Once we started playing All for One Regime Diabolique, I remember meeting Jason and Lee Rimmer and Josh and a bunch of people. And, we ended up playing Lamentations in Prussia. But I got this larger and larger group of people that I played with, and we found out, what games worked, what games didn't work, what groupings of people worked, what groupings of people didn't work, all that sort of stuff. I would love to say it happened overnight, and it really didn't. It took literally years. Meeting Aloy, who actually, I think, watched something by CGA, and that ended up playing with Anthony, and then, it's Star Trek, I think. And then we ended up, forming a friendship, and he brought along Jose, and we, got to be friends and all that sort of stuff. And I'm missing a bunch of people. Jim, the FNG, and Chalice and Chains, and a whole bunch of people that I had dialogues with, a lot of whom I played with, same old G, a lot of whom I didn't play with. And we just, it took time. And then a lot of it also was based on our availability because we were in all these different time zones. And you're trying to figure out that. And that's something we still wrestle with today, trying to figure out how to do it. But it's been my experience that I've found people that weren't necessarily local, that weren't necessarily convenient to play with, but we meshed in some way. Not everything we want, not all of our approaches to gaming are identical. Sometimes we are loggerheads with each other about some issue, and we end up, working together and compromising and figuring out how to accommodate everybody. The usual stuff that happens in, adult relationships. And so that's, it took time. There are communities out there, giant Discord communities, or there's a big thing, I'm forgetting what it is. But, there's various groups. The various groups on Facebook can be nice, but they can also be very divisive because the internet is the internet. And it can be difficult to find people. In fact, I forgot about Dragon's Foot. I played in a game, Lancers of Lendor's Isle, with people years ago that I am still friends with on Facebook. We play like once or twice, via Zoom or Hangouts. I'd love to play with them again. They're great people. But it's just a lot of trial and error. How to be safe? Well, as Susan mentioned, with something like Zoom, well, you can see each other. You can insist that you see each other. As far as communities to find people of, appropriate age or whatever, I don't know. I have less experience because I'm coming to the hobby or the technological side of the hobby. I came to the hobby in 1981, but approaching the hobby, in terms of like all the technology has to offer, as an older individual, a seasoned individual. And so I have less experience with that, but I believe it can be done because of being able to see each other, being able to figure out who the other person is. Of course, you want all that kind of parental supervision, all that kind of junk, just to make sure things are safe and on the level, etc. But once again, that's theory on my end, and not practical experience, not an anecdote. So yeah, I would still love to get a local flesh and blood meat space, as Brian Gregory would call it, a stochastic agency. I would love to get a meat space group, and I just haven't had the time because of music stuff and life stuff and what have you, but also because it's been my personal experience that people that game the way that I like to game are spread out. It's not as common as other forms of gaming or other styles of gaming. And so, it is what it is. However, we live in this awesome time when we can find each other. And I wish there was a better way or a faster way. But my awesome anecdote is that it just took time. It took talking like adults. It took some trial and error. It took some false starts. It took, just acting like rational adults and being able to say, well, okay, maybe this isn't working. Maybe that's working, whatever. And we still got to have a lot of fun doing it. So that's pretty much how I got to where I am now. Took some time, and it's still evolving, and the membership is still evolving. And, well, that's how life is, right? Anyhow, have a good one, kids.